Welcome, everyone. We'll get started in just a minute. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. What a good day it is, Jeff, isn't it?
Oh, it's fantastic today.
Yes, it is. It might be a little gloomy where I'm at, but it's still a great day. Well, thank
Yeah.
you for joining. Today, we're talking about how the PM job is changing with AI and what to do about it. We're all moving faster, all can produce more, and we got to keep pace, but we got to do the right things. My name is Gage Holland. I'm the senior product marketer at Allstacks. I'm joined by Jeff, a veteran in the product world, leading product management, product marketing at companies Atlassian, Microsoft, and a handful of other organizations. Little housekeeping, we're recording, so you're going to get this after this session. There's a Q&A panel. Click that little button and drop a question in. We'll address it either in the session or at the end. Um, we're going to cover what the role of product management looks like, how it's being redefined. Jeff's
hmm
going to take us deeper into two operating modes that are a must for product managers in this new world and what that looks like. And then we're going to show you briefly how Allstacks can help product managers build the right things faster and cheaper. I first want to align on what we're seeing in the market, Jeff, and how the job's shifting. What I've seen is
Right.
it seems like building got cheap. We all have access to AI. We can all code now. It's very effective, efficient, and it seems like the cost of building fell off a cliff. What took a sprint now takes an afternoon. What took 6 months now takes a week or two. I was talking to a friend at Microsoft, and he's a senior software engineer there, and his team will go from an idea to ship production code in a week now,
Yeah.
all using
Hearing that
agents.
everywhere. Everywhere. hmm
And that's real and that's exciting. I come up with an idea and I mock it up in an afternoon, and it's really exciting. I've also seen that everyone has an AI strategy, but not everyone has an AI operating model. I was looking at a post on LinkedIn yesterday from a webinar, and the question was, "What is your AI strategy?" or something like that. And the number one answer was individuals with AI being more productive. That's not an operating system. You know, that's people with AI, and that's company leveraging AI extensively, but not scaled in an operational way, right? I'm seeing also new PM operating systems pop up. You know, PMs have always been stretched between all these different systems, pulling data from one here, another there, conversation there. And now there's these PM operating systems because they need to move faster, but they're still facing the same pain. And my argument is that it's not a tooling gap. It's not that we need to use AI better or different. It's that the whole job itself is changing and what we focus on is changing. And we're going to get into that. But anything, am I on the right track here, Jeff?
So on the right track. This is exactly what's happening in the industry. That's why everyone is here. That's what we're talking about today.
Yeah. Well, awesome. So let's get into it. Let's talk about how the product manager role is being redefined. We're going to contrast the old PM versus the new one. For 30 years, product managers have been the ones that have decided what gets built, they've handed that off, and they've waited. So they've
Hmm.
pulled all this context, they've pulled what the customer wants, what executives want, what the strategy is, where the market's heading, with this feedback, this bug here, piled it all together, decided what to build, put a PRD together, put tickets together, good or bad, and then handed that off. And so their job was really up till that handoff, and they were accountable for that. And then they just waited and said, okay, engineering's building now, we got to wait for that. The new is they're often building. They're on the hook for that full build and the outcome
Hmm.
of that build. And so we see them often building it themselves. We're
Hmm.
seeing them take that idea, prototype, mock it up, get it really close, and then maybe hand it off or take it through themselves. And if they hand it off, they're in the loop through the whole ship and they judge whether it worked or not. And so they're a lot more involved throughout the whole cycle, it looks like. What would
Hmm.
you say, Jeff?
Spot on. Most notably, the role was a handoff positioned one. So I got this done. I hand it to dev. I now go collect context to go work on the next feature. But now the role is more focused on did we achieve the goal, as the responsibility of focusing on the outcome is pushed more towards the product management person, whoever the PM is for a feature. So does the authority to be self-directed, and that's the entirety of the approach. It decentralize a lot of the decision making, push down into these product leaders who act as mini CEOs of their particular feature areas and business.
It it seems like there's a lot more on their plate now, and it's made me
Hmm.
wonder is as we shift into using AI and talking about AI native product managers or AI native product builders, as we'll get to, is it still the same job, and are they just moving faster?
Well, to that point, right? Yes and no.
Yeah.
Is it just faster? No, because if the idea was to just take a project and I've already been given all the ideas and just go deliver that, well, what do you really even need a PM for at that point? So the answer is no. To be an AI PM, you've got to be broader thinking. You've got to understand that the outcome means that you need to understand a broader set of context. You need to own the outcome. The context meaning everything, the goals, desires, wishes from the business itself, of what are the initiatives that we're targeting, and what is the customer wanting? What will produce money for the business
Hmm.
itself? The combination of all those things is critical to help make it happen.
And I've seen in that owning more context, I've seen that they have to now understand a bit more the trade-offs engineering will have to make. So they're sort of
Absolutely.
bringing that up into their role, thinking about strategic work or maintenance work or features versus defects, thinking more about risks and costs of engineering. And so it seems like they are thinking more of CMO. They're not CEO. They're not owning or managing more people. They're just owning more of that business. But this
Hmm.
also made me think, everyone's, I think, seen this. this image. Spider-Man's pointing at each other, being like, "Hey, who are you? What are you doing here?" And there's another term called the Mexican standoff, but we're seeing this because product managers are owning more. Designers are also potentially owning more, and developers
Right,
are potentially owning more. And everyone
right.
thinks that they can do it and
It's
that they
just
don't
prompts,
need.
right? Yeah,
Yeah,
it's just prompts.
it's
Like
just it's
anybody can
vibing,
prompt,
and I got an
right?
idea. I can go build it.
I can
Designers
go to
can.
Claude Design and crank that out. Absolutely. I can, designers like I can crank that code out. Awesome. Everybody does
Yeah,
everything.
yeah, and it's like everyone's kind of wondering where their job's gonna go, right? And the reality is that like what I see is the roles are collapsing. There's still some distinguished differences between them, but the role is collapsing. You used to have this trio of designer, engineer, PM, these distinct roles with little overlap. And now we're seeing this role called a builder, right? I'm sure everyone's starting to hear about that or seen that. You have the Boris Cherney, the Cloud Code creator, that's a builder. I'm seeing LinkedIn has an associate product builder program. Slack talks about AI product builders or something similar. And just this last week, actually, Boris Cherny posted the makeup of the new team. There's a prototyper, a builder, a sweeper, a grower, a maintainer. And that could all be one role, right? At smaller
Yeah.
companies, at a big company, like what are these going to become? But I think the truth is that they are collapsing, right? Anything to add there, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny if you've ever gone to Claude Design and built some kind of design and think that is awesome, and then you have an actual designer look at it and go, "You really suck at this job." It's not that you suck. You can do a lot more. You can do better than anyone can do better than an entry level person
Yeah.
because of the skills. It doesn't necessarily mean that's your main shtick. Anyone can create some code doesn't mean you can really create an application well. Engineering is still needed. And to the same point, not everybody can really be a product manager themselves, whether a builder or a prototyper or understand the business context or understand what will make money, what will have not everyone has a product taste to understand really what the customers will want.
Hmm.
So while the roles blur, and I think there'll be some overlap, and maybe an engineering will run out and be able to play the role of product manager, define some requirements, and build some simple features, product management still has a very specific role to play, just like design. I think design can fix some key problems, or design can play a little bit of product management and jump in. It doesn't mean that the job goes away. I think there's still people that will be design. I think the role of product, though, expands out. I love that post by Journey where he describes the different types of product management and maybe specialties that will exist.
Hmm.
And yeah, builder being able to take it into production and get it done is pretty important.
Yeah. Yeah, you bring up. I was talking with a friend who's a software engineer, and he was coming up with some ideas. And me being in product marketing and having some tie to product management, I'm thinking about, is that really worth it? Is that really would someone use that? Would someone get value from that? From his point of view, it's a great idea, and he's like, yeah, this would be great. But there's still that give and take and that play with each other of, of
Hmm.
course he can go build it, he can come up with an idea, but doesn't necessarily know the market or has the time to know it or has the desire to know it. So there's still those opportunities to be distinct.
Absolutely.
So I want more of your perspective here because when I look at that initially, it's like, well, okay, product builder, PM. Is a PM going to be the one that's, best fit for all these? Are they going to do all three jobs now? What's your take?
I think no, I think you still need a pod, and that pod is the core of the engineer, product, and design, and they'll drive the ship. But yes, if a design, if a designer sees a key kind of little problem and wants to go fix it, well, go ship the code and set up a PR. If a product person sees a little glitch that really should just fix and it's minor, great, go ship a PR. So I think the roles do blur, and I think there's a little bit of intermixing, which is good because it reduces the handoffs. But no, you still need the people that are there. Are there people who can do all three? Yeah, but they're
Yeah.
very, very rare. The actual
And
job of product,
yeah, and worth a fortune. That's why you
yeah,
see
really.
these massive salaries for some of these people.
Oh, it's so true. The people can really do it are the founders of new companies.
Yeah.
So it is an art form. But the actual job of product management needs to get to its foundational roots. What's worth building and did it work? While they're
Yeah.
super simple questions to ask, they're actually hard to answer and require intuition, skills, data, things that you're not necessarily going to get just from prompting. You have to know the right prompts and know how to follow your nose down a path.
Yeah. It's hard to see exactly where these teams could shift, but the concept of the edges blurring on purpose and that being a good thing is interesting to me as the trio. They share context, they share outcome, and
Right.
ideally they should be able to move a lot faster than the previous model, right? It's almost like,
Hmm.
I don't mean to bring up agile again, but bringing smaller teams, more iterative, sharing that context, sharing that shared out, having that shared outcome is beneficial. It doesn't mean that
Yep.
everyone does everything, but if they're closer to that central context and share the outcome, it seems like it makes sense.
Totally the point.
This quote stuck out to me. Marty Kagan, great author, thought leader. Products fail not because they can't be built, because their creators couldn't discover a solution worth building. And that's
Hmm.
really the whole game now is when you can build something so fast, you have to spend a lot more time thinking about discovering, because it's a little harder when you build something to then go rework it, even with AI, especially in production and enterprise environments. And so discovery, thinking about is it worth building is the whole game, right?
Yep. It is. Well, and there's something fundamental here. In the old world, like you go way back to projects, and a big company has lots of projects, they do big room planning, and from down, from on high in the ivory tower, we've decided we got a set of features that we should go build because that's the bet. That's what we want to do. And then the way we go about it is we parse it down in these organizations into doing this planning to then work on it over a quarter or two to then look at did we get adoption.
Mm-hmm.
What an expensive way to decide if
Seriously.
that
Yeah.
bet was good or not. And the whole point is that whole model is now blowing up. We need to blow up the entire thing and put people in charge of watching the intent and the outcomes, but do it in a way to where you're not building everything all at once at production level just to find out if it was the right thing to do. We need a better way of running experiments than just building in and feature flagging it, for example, or building it and turning it on. And, if you build it, they will come. No, it's not how it works.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, horrible products have been built like that. I can give you some examples. I think that's coming up next.
Yeah. Yeah. With this new model we mentioned earlier, it's a new job and there's a new set of skills. And so you're living this, Jeff, and I want to hear from you. What skills does this PM actually need? And when I'm looking at these, I'm like, what do these mean and how are these applied and what does this look like? So can you expand on these?
Yeah, this is a little borrowed from other product leaders in the industry with some augmented pieces. So if you haven't heard these before, I suggest get connected between Mind the Product or Product School or other kinds of Silicon Valley Product Group. You'll hear these same kind of concepts. Product sense, having a sense of what's worth building and what isn't. That's the fundamental of the job. It means you know your customer. It means you know the role of the people and the kinds of pain that they're experiencing to understand how do you fix their problem. The outcome of product sense is really adoption, consumption, and people being happier with your product in whatever you're solving for them than they were without it. Product strategy is really how do you make money with that and what's your strategy to winning, because remember, you're not operating in a vacuum, you're operating in competition, and competition sometimes is just the old way of doing things. What is new now to product management that is ever more important than before is the ability to proof out things and get feedback on those things. So, a core skill is prototyping and vibe coding through this so that you can create mock-ups on whatever concept you're thinking about, taking the first 2 points before. What's the strategy? How you're going to make money? What's the thing that's worth building and isn't? And do you have a taste for what that will look like? And putting that all together into stuff that you can get actual signal and using that signal to then drive what you end up building. You should be doing a lot of these mock-ups and proof of concepts. Related to it is, since we live in the world of AI, so much of the feature set is AI focused. It's a chat prompt. How do you know if that chat prompt was good? Well, get comfortable with AI evals so that you can write these evals
Mhm.
so that you have agentic evaluation of the whole process as well as a human to judge what they did, what they achieved, and was it successful? A couple others that I would challenge folks to think about is owning the outcome. Before you get started, yeah, to understand like what does success actually look like? Is it consumption? Is it new users signing up? Is it a customer sat score? Sure, revenue. Everyone always talks about delivering value faster, but revenue is a little further delayed. I argue that if you can get more eyeballs and consumption, revenue will come, and it's part of it. But it may not always be the goal. If you're a platform team, what is the outcome? You're consolidating components. You're able to ship faster. Lots of features that fit in that. Finally, because of AI, there's a new area that has arisen that every product manager has to deal with now, which is managing their own little operating system. The context has outgrown your capacity to keep it in your head. Every meeting is not going to fit. In fact, you're not in the room for every meeting. Understanding what customers are needing, the backlog, key issues that sales has, what kinds of strategy the executive side of the business is pushing, and how do you integrate that all together into a single consolidate. You can't do it all by yourself and stay current and keep up with the AI tooling and the changes in the market for what AI is doing. Good luck. You're going to need an operating system. It's the only way you'll survive. And everyone is building one. If you're not, reach out to me. There's so many different paths here. We also have some things we can help with. But ultimately, these are skill sets that you should be intimately familiar with. If not, lots of options on how to get there. I'm a huge fan of Product School, by the way, and what they're doing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. On that managing the PMOS, Jeff, like how does that look different than before? It seemed like engineering, or excuse me, product, they had all their tools that the organization typically gave them. Maybe they could purchase a few of their own, but engineering largely drove process, their tools, and business and project driving down. Like, how does this become a reality?
You know, given the tool set, whether you're Claude or ChatGPT or pick your tooling here, there's so much that's going into aggregating this together. MCP servers that connect out to the tool set where the tickets are, to your backlog, your roadmap, tracking the meetings themselves, the documents, so many different places that these things exist, of pulling that together, and then layering on top of these different data sources a set of skills that help you write PRDs or help you write an executive summary or export out and summarize a bunch of content into a set of roadmaps, for example, or a strategic positioning. There's so much to be done. Why would you go and write a customer interview on around a certain feature? Have AI do that. In order to do
Hmm.
that, it needs to have the context of what the feature is you're building, your expected outcome, and then see where it goes. And then why would you compile the results yourself? You wouldn't. You would use a skill that's going to interpret all lots of conversations and listen to customer calls and see how well you did. If you're going to do a prototype, what will that look like when you're done? Well, you're going to show it to people, watch them click around, measure success rates. There's so many different scenarios where this fits together. The operating system is key.
Yeah, 100%. Thanks for sharing. So the teams are going to look different too. There's this uh, term that I'm sure that or concept we're familiar with, the two pizza team. It's a whole org unit. that could go and execute on something. The reality is with these skills, the squad gets smaller. Think
Yep.
about a half pizza pod, PM, a designer, and an engineer as one unit, organizing specifically around an outcome and not just functions passing over the wall. A goal here is to carry as few dependencies as possible.
Yep.
Like we were talking about before, PM owns more of that context. So think about the team owning more of that context, team being oriented around that outcome, having all their tooling that they need to carry as few dependencies as possible to keep the pace that we need to go.
Hmm.
And I think we've seen that teams winning with AI are redesigning the PM role first because of the
Hmm.
importance of thinking about what's worth building, did it work, the unique value that PMs provide around that aspect. And so practically, the numbers drop. Kagan, I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, Jeff, but I think there was a 6-to-1 ratio or 8 engineers, maybe went down to 5 or 6 in the past 5, 10 years. And now it'll be just a core team of three. Um, we've heard the AI company leaders talk about the billion-dollar one-person companies. We're starting to see those. Starting to see less people being able to operate effectively. So anything to add there? This is what I'm seeing.
No, it's spot on. I you just get used to it. You might share a designer, but certainly it's much tighter the ratio. I'm seeing now a 1 p.m. to 2 dev, or it used to be literally 1 p.m. to 5 6, and even a couple of teams you'd have. All that's changed.
Yep, yep, I'm seeing that too. So let's get into some of the practical here. We're going to talk
Yep.
about the two operating modes, building to learn, building to earn. Two very important operating modes that we're going to dive into. And where I started here was, okay, where did the cost move? Where did the pressure move? It used to be so like development used to be the longest part, and we've heard this now over and over. It's shrunk, and there's way more code being built per developer per person, but there's still not quite the overall throughput and speed happening. There are some great companies that are figuring it out, but on the majority, uh, it's not quite happening. So where's that pressure going? And I see it going one towards upstream at the intent. You've really got to think
Mhm.
about what's worth doing and why. There's pressure there because we can move so fast. And then at the other end, the outcome, did it move the thing that we care about? So this is what I'm seeing. And when you're shipping faster, you get the answer for either of those things a whole lot faster. So you think
Yep.
if you build the wrong thing, you just built it way faster and figured that out. And then you built it faster and you figured out, oh, this isn't going to create the outcome that we want. But I want to dig into this a bit more. But anything to add here, Jeff?
Yeah, the old PM model was interesting because you had enough time to gather context while building was kind of going through the process. You'd go through a PI planning, for example, if you're in a big company, and you'd have enough time to say, "Oh, we're going to do this feature because it sounds good." And then once you get to the sprint, like, I got some time to sort of inject a few things, and then your scope expands, and then you're cutting some things. But the ultimate point was what you were doing is experimenting by building production software. And what's happened now is, well, engineering is burning through the backlog of stuff we said we're going to build. And the questions are coming back to, did we achieve it? Well, what was the intent? What's the outcome? All that happened is that we reached this unanswered question and we're not really listening to the answer. So that's all got to change. The ends are now more expensive because we're wasting time and money. And if you haven't heard people question you about the number of tokens you're spending, I don't know where you live, but
I
go
mean,
ahead and try to justify the tokens you're spending when it didn't achieve an outcome. Who cares if you're faster, if you're going the wrong
I,
direction?
I think the reality is hitting because there was this perception, or maybe it's just the hype of like, we do think it's cheap. I can just
Mhm.
produce something and make it, and it's like awesome. I can build a whole company from it. But
Right.
uh,
But
does
should
that mean
you?
it's
Yeah.
right, or does that mean it's good? Like, is there anything? bad that can happen when you're building cheap and just sending things, you know.
Oh, I got stories, stories upon stories.
I think
Um,
you, yeah, w-
if you want to bump to the next slide,
I think you got a good one here.
way back in yesteryear, I used to work at Microsoft on the Office team, and I went to the transition where we were implementing the ribbon. And if you don't remember this, it used to be you just had like this little file menu, and Office, we were like, we're gonna revolutionize the way people use software because they can't find all the features that they want to use in Word and Excel and all those things. And so we thought the ribbon is going to be where this happens. And so we did a lot of studies on what that ribbon would be. What we found are two key things as we got into the research. One, the average Word user, for example, Microsoft Word at that time, this must have been 2004, 2005, used about 3% of the features. And so we put up all the features that were built in, meaning these are just features. Nobody uses them. And nobody thought about all the bloat and things that it created to get there, but people weren't using them. And two, that bloat created confusion. The problem we had in defining the ribbon was we have all these dumb features. How do we get them right to the right spot so they can do what they actually needed? So we had to start listening to usage patterns. We even implemented user research where we would watch their eyes and where they were looking on the screen to figure out where and what they were doing. So I come back to that same quote. What an awful way to realize that you built a feature in a bad way. It created confusion. It created, if you look at even the screen, like what the thing they really wanted to do was just to type a note, and here they lost it. So I come back to that same saying. The most expensive way to test an idea is production quality software. Please don't test with production quality software. Spend your efforts dividing the kind of work that you need to do into I'm now getting ready to build something to learn and get signal if this is what customers actually want and will pay for and will use and will achieve the outcome, or I have signal that this is something I want to do, and now let's build it so that we build it right. If you jump to the next slide. So what
Yep.
does it mean? Let's jump to why is it expensive, for example, to build something for production? Well, because what's needed now is a whole lot more than you ever needed before. Now you can't, you can go to a developer and say, here's a requirements blurb and it's got a few bullet points. And because you have tribal knowledge of the background of the product, you have different mock-ups that you already have, you can kind of go figure that out. Go. And so a product manager could step away and let a designer argue a little bit, and maybe there'd be a mock-up, maybe not. But in general, like this would roll forward. In today's world, if you go ask your general a leader of product managers, I would guess you're going to hear 95% of requirements must include a mock-up. It's required because it's going to get handed to a set of agents and engineers to go implement. The requirements have got to be enough that an agent knows what to do. In some cases, those requirements might be really small, and there's a bunch of technical specs that are really long. Oh, wait, technical specs? That's now part of the product? Yeah, this whole idea of a product definition as being this bundle of stuff, you need it all. The implication here is you need some kind of evidence to know where did all this stuff come from because things are moving so fast and people are going to come ask like what did we do this for? Why are we building XYZ feature? Here's the bet, here's the outcome we're looking for, here's the customers that asked for it, here's the executive initiative of where this is going and why we should do it. So product definition is still kind of expensive to go build. It requires thinking time. It requires
Hmm.
tokens for sure. So you got to go build that. When you're getting ready to build to earn, build a product definition. Ideally, one that is living, that can be gone back to and modified and asked questions of and so forth. But what about before that? Um, if you click the next slide. So think about a different mindset that not all building is the same. Go to your intent of what you're trying to do and to think to yourself, well, Am I at a point where I have solid signal that I can use as evidence to go build out a product definition, and then I can go build all those components of the mock-ups and everything else that comes along with it? Or am I at a point to where I really need to get some customer signal? I have to build a mock-up either way. So why don't I change the patterns of how I work and define two modes? If you Jeff Patton, the author of user story mapping, called this building to learn versus building to earn. So let's dig into what this means for a second. Hit the next slide. Building to learn is a process where you start with, what's my intent? I have a problem I know they're dealing with. I want them to understand how to solve this. I have a hypothesis of how to work through this problem, what it will look like. I have a set of rough requirements. They might not be completely settled, but I don't need to go PRD this thing. The only person that's worrying about this right now is me. I'm a product guy. As a product guy, then I can go and mock up this idea, work through what it looks like, and show it to people interactively. Here's a piece of software that looks like it's pretty real. I've even done these kinds of sessions on paper and say I've sat in front of somebody. What happens when you click here and it's like, oh, let me flip to page 27 and oh, here's your new screen. It doesn't matter how you pull these things off, but given the tools today, goodness, load up Cursor, load up Replit, and just mock something up. Claude Code, it's easy. Tell it to use some style. Your design won't be exactly right. That's not the intent. Your design is, your intent here is to understand what the users are struggling with, and will this solve their problem, and will they navigate here? There'll be versions of this that are just around user experience, and that's okay. Now, as you learn this, you're then going to go to the next step to understanding, like, now I'm ready to build to earn. Take that feedback and that intent, build your product definition, build it, ship it, and measure your outcomes. See if you were successful. Don't just build stuff and not listen. So, as you move forward with this, the practice is you should be doing this a lot. In fact, I talked to a friend of mine. He leads a group of 20 product managers. He says he wants every one of his product managers to be running experiments of building to learn every week. Have a handful of these that are running at all times. Meanwhile, what they're interweaving in is some of these will graduate into product definitions that are in the process of actually building. The workload of product management just exploded because now you got these experiments you're running and you got stuff you're actually building while you're working with the team. So there's a lot to do doing to both. Remember though, experiments are meant to die. Don't make the mistake of, I prototype some code and here we go. There will always be questions by some executive like, well, there it is. Why can't it just end up production? Yes, see your local development team for those kinds of answers, because there's a lot there of why it can't just be production. You didn't
Mm-hmm.
build it for production. You built it so that you could learn and get feedback. You need to now take a cycle through, okay, what was the user experience feedback that we got? What will the new design be? What will the architecture change to be? Now, even better if all of these experiments are grounded in the code. And the kind of the whole point of this journey is you need to, you know, base these things together. But what's the problem if you're not doing this? And this may be where you're sitting today. That's where the next slide hits. Remember that when you're building to learn, you're building a throwaway work to answer a question. Do you understand the problem? Do you understand the intent? Do you understand what issues they're having? And looking for an evidence to decide, does it graduate? When you're building to earn, you're looking to get production level software that's secure, privacy, fits into the system, not creating more technical debt. When you blend the two, you're wasting money. You're over engineering something that should be thrown away and iterated on. Never ship B1. Ship something that's been through this. You're, uh, frankly, you're going to ship crap and spend a lot of time where people feel locked in if you ship the prototype. I can't tell you the number of times I've seen this
Oh
and been
yeah.
involved in it, and still everybody does it. But boy, you know how hard it is to change things once they're in production, even when it's prototype code. You set a bad experience for customers that are dealing with crap, even if you do call it beta. Meanwhile, you are still starving discovery. You have an opportunity to explore all sorts of things. If you're only building to earn, you have this whole backlog that they'll come back to and say, well, what should we build next? I don't know. Haven't done enough work there. And what this does is it adds weight. Remember the word picture that I showed you? All of that
Hmm.
is a boat anchor to building new features. What do we do with these other funds? How do we fit this in the menu? Where do we put this in the feature set? How does it work together? How do we aggregate the data together? What happens? It's going to slow everything else down. Get rid of the stuff that doesn't matter. That's the whole point. So, how do you build to learn well? Like what's the journey really look like here? Again, start from the outcome. Start from what you know that you want to achieve. I just put in here an example of, like, let's say your product wants to have a voice notes feature. What's the outcome of a voice notes feature? Think about it. Oh, maybe I'm too lazy to type and I want to cut the amount of time to put data into a field. Voice notes, great. Now you're going to surface assumptions. Will they build it, pay for it? Put your assumption in here. Will reps actually talk to their phone or to their microphone or to their will they do this in front of their computer? What if they're in an office building and a bunch of what kind of risky assumptions do you have? This takes 5 minutes. I'm telling you, write a killable hypothesis. Put your kill your fail condition right up front. If under 30% of notes are voice in 1 week, you're gonna, that's probably even, I, a voice note feature, if 10% or less, if you get 2% that do it, yeah, kill that feature. Don't do it. And you could test this. You could put this in front. Hey, look at that voice feature. Would you use it? This is testable. Four is like build the smallest test you can. The point here is, one, if you're a product person not having weekly conversations with customers, you're not doing your job. Two, if you're not building something that you can explore with them on every single conversation, you're missing an opportunity. So build a test. Here's a little mic button. How long does it take to mock that up? Put a screenshot of your current application. Hey, cursor, go put a mic button in here for the input. See how it works. Easy. And then the last point here is do a few of these. The statistical significance usually is, we always called it, like, as soon as you have six, you have the majority of the feedback you're going to hear. You'll get more variety depending upon the amount of risk and the investment. You might do more, but man, three, massive feedback. Six, really, I always consider that good enough signal and go. You can then get more signal on a bigger set of outcomes and features. But decide, do you kill it? Do you revise it? Do you pivot? Do you persevere and expand? All those are great questions as you're getting into the next steps of this. Um, how's that, Gage?
That's really helpful. Why don't we give a little preview of what we have to offer, and then we'll close it out, take any questions if there are any.
You bet. So, Product Studio, Allstacks, we're really helping. Remember back on the skills that you need to have. The one skill that takes time away from doing all the rest of this is managing your own operating system for a product manager. That's what we've done. So if you go to the next slide, what you do with Product Studio is it's connected to your tools, and you just tell it what you're trying to do, and it'll help you both build to learn and build to earn in creating a product definition. You put in your intent, and you don't need a PRD. You don't need any other kind of templates or anything. You just tell it what you're trying to do. It's grounded in the code base, and it will then give you feedback and help you build out whatever you're trying to build out. It is it's looking across your context from existing work, from your code, from pull requests. You can get your customer voice by integrating Gong or other kinds of call recording systems. It connects to your document repositories, Confluence. Um, we're getting Google Drive integrated. Get your SharePoint. Add your own research notes, and most importantly, too, is it understands you and your team, your delivery history, your metrics, where things went wrong in the past, where things went right in the past. And you mix all that together, it's like having an analyst work with you on every
Hmm.
step of the work that you're working on. And so when you go to SPAR here, now you have an operating system that you didn't have to go build or maintain and burn tokens on. You just work here and create your ideas. So what you end up doing is you put your idea in, it runs through discovery, pulls up a whole bunch of stuff, and gives you advice in this journey and gives you the feedback. If you jump to the next one of the cool features it has is this thing called adversarial reviewers. It's a set of skills, if you will, that will pressure test your idea. Does this make business sense? What do you have? How will you test this? What would the MVP of this look like? What are security concerns? Um, what's the technical architecture look like? And will give you feedback and help refine your idea as you push this thing out to learn, because you can go to a prototyping environment, or to earn as you create a proper product definition. And if you go to the next slide, once you're doing this in parallel, it'll build the work tree for you. You want to build a set of epics and user stories that are ready for your team and then create the specs. Great. All of this is ready to go. So um, if you go to the next slide, in fact, you can tune the evaluation of the requirements and the specs and everything. Give it a set of criteria. We've got some background agents that will go and help evolve and mature what you've got. So go to the next slide. The whole point is this is for you to try out now. Hook this up to your
Yep.
tools and stop managing your own product management operating system. The key aspect of this for you is it's shareable. This isn't you and you alone. You could actually share this with others on your team and collaborate more so that other product people can see it, or your design, your engineering, and everybody comes in, and you don't have to manage this whole environment yourself. So the point is get used to building to learn, but build to learn smart. Have it grounded in the code. Use a product management operating system to help you in this journey. And that's what we do.
Good stuff. Thank you so much, Jeff. I'll give a minute for any questions to pop up. Otherwise, we'll end it. We'll leave you with this question. The question was never how do we ship faster? It's did we build the right thing and how fast did we find out? I hope you've learned something today. We talked about how the role is being redefined, the skills to go over, the skills to have as an AI native P product manager, how the teams look, and how to apply these operating systems. Please connect with Jeff and I. Feel free to reach out with questions. I'll go back here. If you want to go to this link, you can check out Product Studio and sign up right away and start using it today. Um, Also, to go deeper, learn more, check out the Stacked Sessions YouTube channel with Jeff. He's got a bunch of great experts on there and he goes deeper into all these topics. And I always learn a lot from it. So, um, if there's no questions, I think we'll call it a day.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you
everybody.
all for joining. Good stuff, Jeff. Talk to you later.